In the year 150 AD, the Roman Empire controlled an economy worth an estimated 20% of the entire world's GDP. It was the richest, most powerful civilization on Earth. By 476 AD, it no longer existed. In 1600, the Mughal Empire produced roughly 25% of global GDP, more than all of Western Europe combined at the time. Within 150 years, it was bankrupt. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire was so wealthy that European kings borrowed money from it. By 1875, it formally declared bankruptcy and handed control of its own tax revenues to foreign creditors. Three of the most powerful economic empires in human history. Three complete collapses. And here is the part that should make you stop and think. Every single one of them collapsed for the same reason. Not war, not plague, not invasion. They collapsed because of what they did to their own money. And today, the United States is doing the same thing, in the same sequence.
Let's start with Rome, because it is the most documented and the most uncomfortable parallel. At its height, Rome was an economic miracle. It had sophisticated banking, long-distance trade routes across 3 continents, a stable currency called the denarius, and a treasury that funded one of the most powerful armies in human history. So what happened? It started with a single decision that seemed completely logical at the time. The government needed more money to pay its soldiers, fund its wars, and keep the population fed. And rather than increase taxes or cut spending, both politically impossible, Roman emperors started doing something much simpler. They started putting less silver in the silver coins. In 27 BCE, the denarius was 95% pure silver. By 265 AD, just 300 years later, it contained less than 0.5% silver. The coin looked the same, it had the same face on it, but it was worth almost nothing. The result was exactly what you would expect. Prices across the empire exploded. By 265 AD, prices had risen by over 1,000% from their earlier levels. Soldiers demanded.
Now, let's move to an empire most Americans have never been taught about, despite the fact that at its peak, it was the wealthiest empire on Earth. The Mughal Empire, at its height in the early 1600s under Emperor Akbar, produced an estimated 25% of global GDP. To put that in perspective, the United States today produces about 25% of global GDP. The Mughals were, in economic terms, the America of their era. And then came the decisions that ended it all. Emperor Shah Jahan, the man who built the Taj Mahal, spent so lavishly on monuments, palaces, and war campaigns that he began draining the treasury at a pace it could not recover from. But the final blow came from his son, Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb fought a decades-long military campaign in the Deccan region of southern India. The campaign lasted 27 years. It consumed the entire Mughal military budget. His army bill was roughly double that of his predecessors. The treasury showed visible signs of bankruptcy while the war was still ongoing. Taxes were raised to levels the agricultural base could not sustain. Peasants abandoned their fields rather than pay. Revenue fell. But war continued anyway. When Aurangzeb died in 1707, the Ottoman collapse is the most modern of the three, and in some ways the most instructive, because it happened in an era of global financial markets that would feel recognizable to us today. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire was so economically powerful that it was a net lender to European nations. European monarchs borrowed from the Ottomans. Then the Crimean War hit in 1853, and for the first time in its history, the Ottoman government decided to borrow money from foreign creditors to finance the war. That first loan in 1854 seemed manageable, but the empire took another loan in 1858, then 1860, then 1862, 1863, 1865, and So here is the pattern. Step 1, the empire is at the peak of its wealth and power. Step 2, the government faces a financial pressure it cannot solve politically, a war, a monument, a welfare commitment. Step 3, instead of making the hard choice, it takes the easy exit, debasing the currency, overspending the treasury, or borrowing from foreign creditors. Step 4, the short-term fix works. The empire continues. The crisis feels solved. Step 5, the underlying problem compounds quietly for decades. Step 6, a trigger event. A crop failure, a war, a financial panic exposes the rot that has been building. Step 7, collapse. Rome followed this sequence. The Mughals followed it. The Ottomans followed it. And the United States is currently somewhere between Step 4 and Step 5. The $35 trillion national debt did not appear overnight. It was built across decades of small decisions that each seemed reasonable in isolation. The pattern does not announce itself. It just quietly advances, one budget deficit at a time, until the treasury that once felt infinite suddenly cannot cover its own interest payments.
So where does America actually stand? The United States currently carries over $35 trillion in national debt. Annual interest payments crossed $1 trillion in 2023, making it the single largest line item in the federal budget, larger than defense, larger than Medicare. The dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power since 1971. The country runs a structural deficit every single year, meaning it spends more than it collects in taxes, regardless of economic conditions. None of these facts, by themselves, prove that America is about to collapse. Rome lasted centuries after the debasement began. The Mughals survived decades after Aurangzeb's wars emptied the treasury. The Ottomans limped along for 50 years after their 1875 default. Empires are slow to die. But here is what history makes undeniable. There is no example of an empire that reached this stage of the pattern and reversed it without a painful and fundamental restructuring of how it managed money.
History does not repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes with remarkable precision when it comes to how empires manage and mismanage money. Rome debased its currency until inflation destroyed the productive class. The Mughals overspent on war until the treasury had nothing left to give. The Ottomans borrowed until the interest payments consumed the empire itself. These were not stupid decisions made by stupid people. They were made by intelligent rulers facing real political pressures, choosing short-term survival over long-term stability. And that is exactly what makes the pattern so persistent, because the pressure to take the easy road never goes away. Understanding this pattern from the inside, at the personal level, and at the national level is not pessimism. It is the first step toward not repeating it. If you want to keep connecting ancient empire economics to the decisions being made right now, subscribe to Economics of Empire. This is exactly what we do every week. I'll see you in the next one.